ICE teaming up with Guatemalan police to stop a group of 300 migrants heading to the United States. The Honduran migrants are being sent back home.
This as DHS has started to send Mexican migrants in the United States back home to Mexico, flying them deep into the country rather than simply taking them to the borders and saying, go home that way.
Joining us with more, Acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Chad Wolf. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So we heard a lot about caravans in the past, forming and moving. Is Mexico doing anything about it? What will we do when they approach the border? How have things changed when it comes to this most recent one?
Yeah, I think you're seeing two different changes between now and 2018, not only in the sheer number and the size, which is much lower, and they're dispersed, but also in the environment. And we see a much more aggressive enforcement posture by our partners in Central America and Mexico, and that's really been at the urging of the department and the president. So they're going to run into a whole host of issues as they try to transverse Guatemala and then into Mexico. We've heard Mexico will not let them through. It's going to limit their access to the southern part of the country. They're not going to provide transit visas, and so the environment is completely different as it was 2 years ago. Should they get through? Should they get all the way to our southwest border? We have a number of policies and plans in effect that will not allow them in.
Sure.
Chad, it's working. If you look at the numbers, last May, remember, thousands. We would show videos of thousands coming across our border. There were 144,116 last May. This past December, 40,620. What do you credit? Because they didn't talk about immigration at all at the Democratic debate at the beginning of the week. Why do you think these numbers are dropping?
Well, I think what it signifies is the president's strategy is working. So we've had about a 75% decrease in those numbers, and it's a variety of different things. It's obviously the partnerships that we have with our Central American and Mexico partners, but it's also the policies and the procedures that we've put in place at the border. So whether it's some of the flights that you talked about, MPP, it's a variety of different programs that have put in place that individuals now trying to cross the border illegally, they all go into an immigration pathway, and we've ended catch and release. And so we've disincentivized them making this dangerous journey and trying to seek asylum. What we know is the vast majority of these folks are looking for jobs or to reunify with their family. That's not asylum. But they've used our laws against us in the past, and we've changed that.
And, of course, the President of the United States threatened them, threatened Mexico, unless you start cracking down, we're going to have tariffs. And now it's great news that the Guatemalans also realize there's money involved, and they're now, as you've called it, one of our partners. But Chad, let's talk a little bit about what's going on here in New York State. Right. Obviously, a sanctuary state, and this 21-year-old Rizan Khan was arrested in November on assault and weapons charges, and ICE had a detainer on him, and yet he was released. And then, as it turns out, he has now been charged with the murder of a 92-year-old woman. That, on the heels of the fact that they've done criminal justice reform and no bail here in New York State, it's almost impossible at certain levels of crime to get arrested, Chad.
I agree. It's absolutely disgusting. The politicians and jurisdictions there are certainly playing politics with public safety. You mentioned not only the sanctuary policies, but also the green light law that New York has passed, which limits the amount of information that CBP and ICE can obtain from the DMV database, which they use every day to build cases against criminals and terrorists alike. So again, it's very, very dangerous once jurisdictions and politicians put politics above public safety. And we're trying to do everything that we can to battle that, but it is an uphill battle.
And Mr. Khan was charged with stabbing his father. Then they let him out because of the policies here in New York. And he goes and does this and assaults her before he kills her. And the mayor's office releases this statement: "We mourn with the family of Ms. Fuentes. If Mr. Khan is convicted, the city will cooperate with federal officials in accordance with local law. It is shameful that the Trump administration is politicizing this tragedy. Politicizing the facts are the facts."
And cooperating with federal officials in accordance with local law.
If convicted.
Yeah, there seems like a lot of... Go ahead.
What I would say is a completely preventable tragedy. Had they honored the ICE detainer, this would never have happened. So if they would have cooperated with ICE officials, the individual never would have been let out, wouldn't have committed this crime, and we wouldn't even be talking about this. So if they would just cooperate in the first place, wouldn't even be an issue.
Ultimately, the issue is safety. Are the people of New York safer?
I don't believe so. Not with the policy, sanctuary policies and the like. What this does, the only sanctuary it provides is to criminals. It makes those communities less safer. It also makes ICE and law enforcement officials less safe. So instead of picking up an individual in a confined jail setting, they have to go into communities, knock on doors and the like. And so it's, again, putting those communities at danger and the like. So it's just, again, I think it's very hypocritical for them to say that. If they would just have honored that ICE detainer to begin with, we wouldn't even be talking about this.
All right, Acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Okay, Jillian has some